Trust in public institutions is a bedrock of functioning society. Yet, while the United States is experiencing a significant erosion in this level of trust, Denmark continues to maintain robust confidence in its institutions. So why is trust tanking in the US but not in Denmark? Over the past several decades, Americans' trust in their institutions has been on a steady decline. According to the Pew Research Center, trust in the federal government has plummeted from over 70% back in 1958 to under 20% in recent years. In 2025, the Edelman Trust Barometer revealed that 70% of Americans believe government officials, business leaders, and journalists deliberately mislead them. Events like financial crises, political scandals, and increasing polarization have further eroded public confidence. Basically, when people feel lied to, excluded from decision-making, or like the system is rigged against them, trust begins to evaporate. Denmark, on the other hand, boasts some of the highest levels of institutional trust in the world. Danes generally trust their government, their judiciary, their police, and even their media. The country consistently ranks at the top of global transparency and corruption indices, and its government operates with a high degree of openness. There's a cultural expectation that institutions will work for people rather than against them. So what's driving this stark difference? One major factor is Denmark's comprehensive social welfare system. Now, I've talked about this on our channel before, and most people around the world are generally aware of it, but it ties into trust in a major way. When citizens feel financially secure, knowing that their healthcare, education, and basic needs are covered, it fosters a sense of stability and trust in the system. Stable systems that work foster trust across society. On the other hand, in the US, where social safety nets are knowably weaker and economic inequality is much higher, many feel abandoned by their institutions. In fact, some forces are happy to undermine that for their own advantage. That's how politics and political culture plays a role in all of this. Denmark has a long tradition of consensus-based politics. The parties work together rather than constantly engaging in ideological warfare. And don't get me wrong, it exists, and there are culture war issues in Denmark, but they're less of a focus than the practical business of government. The US, on the other hand, has become increasingly polarized, with trust in government often tied directly to political affiliation. Those affiliations are conflated with aspects of people's identity, and that diminishes trust in the system further. If people only trust institutions and government when their preferred party is in power, it leads to societal instability. There's always somebody to blame and not to trust. The media landscape is another key factor. Denmark has a very strong public service media that most citizens rely on for balanced news and fun Christmas specials. Of course, there are other publications and programs with a political lean, but it's far from the media landscape in the US, where news consumption is often fragmented along party lines. If people don't even agree on basic facts, trust becomes nearly impossible to maintain. Then there's the role of corruption, or the lack of it. Now, Danish politicians have had their share of political scandals in the past, but they're largely held responsible for them, some even serving jail time. So because Danish politicians and public officials have been held to high ethical standards in the past, the perception is that corruption is rare. Now, in the US, money plays an enormous role in politics through lobbying and corporate influence. This makes many Americans feel that the system only serves the wealthy and powerful rather than the ordinary citizens. When people believe that money can buy influence, that politicians are literally being bribed in full view of the public, trust in democracy collapses. Education also plays a role in shaping long-term trust. Denmark's school system emphasizes civic responsibility, critical thinking, and engagement in democracy from an early age. Now, these things aren't completely missing from US curriculums, but civics education in the States has declined over the years, and the result is that many Americans are feeling disengaged from or disillusioned with the political process. If people don't feel empowered to participate, they're less likely to trust the system. And finally, there's just everyday social trust, the belief that other people, not just institutions, are generally honest and reliable and good people. Studies show that Danes tend to trust strangers more than Americans do. And this trust plays out in small but significant ways, like leaving babies outside in strollers, we've all seen that on social media, or just relying on the honor system for public transportation, trusting that your neighbors will pick up your deliveries if you're not home. And in the US, where economic inequality and crime rates are higher, social trust is much lower. And when people don't trust each other, it's even harder to trust that the institutions that govern them are sound. So what does this all mean? Trust isn't just about how governments function, it's about how people experience their daily life. When people feel like the system works for them, they trust it. And when they feel excluded, ignored, or exploited, that trust tends to crumble. The US faces serious challenges in reversing this decline, but examining models like Denmark can offer insights into how trust is built and how it's maintained. Now, nothing happens overnight, and something like trust doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are plenty of parts of the culture, population, and the country itself that influence trust in Denmark as well as in the United States. And I don't think the US should just copy everything about Denmark or any other country for that matter, but there are valid critiques of the status quo in America, and people that live there need to trust that their government can address the issues of the day. Identifying what fosters trust is part of gaining that back. That's transparency, stability, fairness, and a sense of collective responsibility. Once trust is lost, it takes a real effort to rebuild. So the question is, can the US restore faith in its institutions, or has that decline in trust become a permanent feature of American life? I'd like to think it's restorable, and of course, the answer isn't just copying Denmark or moving to Denmark. In fact, you can't just move to Denmark, even if you are unhappy with the trust levels, the political landscape, or other factors of your life in the United States. But if you want to know more about why not, or the reasons and the ways that you can move to Denmark, this video right here will give you more insights into how to do that and how I did it. Thanks for watching today, everybody. Hi.